What is up, guys? Pogo9 here, and today I'm going to cover a 4-1 Practice Sorcerous Cup tournament that I did through the Pokemon Go Coliseum Discord. This was a 4-1 run, and as you can see here in the upper left, I ran a team of Noctowl, Medicham, Bronzong, Glalie, Tentacruel, and Alolan Muck. This team is mainly built around Alolan Muck. It's absolutely one of the strongest picks in the Cup. There's not much that can really hard counter it, except perhaps Toxicroak. As for Noctowl, it was there to support that Muck as an anti-Toxicroak if I needed it, as well as it does a lot of good neutral damage with that Sky Attack to pretty much everything in the Cup. I actually found a rank 1 Hoot Hoot last week to evolve into Noctowl, so I built that specifically for this Cup. Next up there, my shiny Medicham. Its main purpose in this was as an Ice-type counter, but I ended up not using it very much. I may end up replacing it with something else on my team, but it's actually pretty good against some normal types. Like you'll see here on my first opponent's team, Stoutland, and in some later matches, it actually came in pretty clutch. Bronzong as well as my Confusion user. I decided I wanted to try a team to build a team without Azumarill or Hypno. So as a substitute for Hypno, I ran this Bronzong as my Confusion user. Obviously very strong against Toxicroak, Medicham, and that Confusion hits neutral on a lot of different things. As well as having that Steel subtyping makes it resist Psychic so that it can more easily beat other Confusion users, although it does have to watch out for the Shadow Ball from Hypno. Glalie there is my Ice type. I don't necessarily have a particular reason for choosing it over Frostlass, considering that they have the exact same move pool. The only difference is their typing, whereas Frostlass has that Ghost typing, Glalie is pure Ice. Again, I didn't use it too much. It was more there as a flex pick in case I needed it against an opposing grass type or something like that, or a flyer. I think if I were to replay and rebuild this team, I would probably substitute Frostlass in for it, just because Frostlass doesn't get beat by those counter users as hard, like Toxicroak and Medicham, because it does resist it with that Ghost typing. However, I had a Glalie that I hadn't built yet, and I just felt like spending some dust, so I put all that into my Glalie. And then last but not least here, we have the Tentacruel. All 6 of my Pokemon can not do super great against Azumarill, so it is there as a hard counter to that, as well as to some Charmers that would otherwise also do some damage to my team. My only other real counter to Charmers is the Bronzong there, but that's not necessarily a hard counter in every scenario. Muck does have that Sludge Wave that it can throw at Charmers, but the charms do add up, especially if they use their shields. Going into round 1 here, I'm playing against Velociraptor, and his team was Hypno, Medicham, Frostlass, Slowpoke, very, very spicy pick there, Skuntank, and then Stoutland with that newly buffed Wild Charge. Leading Muck into Stoutland, obviously not a matchup that too many people would be familiar with. Alolan Muck does resist those licks, which is very good for me, and I can get to these Dark Pulses faster than the Stoutland can get to the Wild Charges. As well with the Stoutland, when it throws that Wild Charge, it will have a 2-stage defense debuff, so I'm going to shield the first one, allowing me to very easily farm down with Snarl if I so choose. However, he immediately switches out into Skuntank, and I switch into Noctowl. I don't really want my Tentacruel against that because it will resist the poison jabs while also taking neutral from the crunch, whereas I would have to hit it with a Hydro Pump, which can be a difficult feat because of the high energy that it is. However, Noctowl is a good safe option against Skuntank. It goes just about even with it, depending on shield scenarios and energy, and I was able to swap in fast enough that it doesn't make a big difference. I will survive this crunch, and I'm hoping to get to another Sky Attack there, but I fall just short. So at this point, I'm going to bring back in Alolan Muck and go for that Dark Pulse, which is slightly more energy efficient than the Sludge Wave there. I see that a lot of his team is weak to Alolan Muck. Obviously, the Hypno is not a big fan of it. Medicham takes neutral from the Dark Pulse and Sludge Wave. Frostlass takes super effective from Dark Pulse. Slowpoke takes super effective from Dark Pulse. Skuntank and Alolan Muck fill very similar roles, so I would call that one a tie. Although if Skuntank does have Flamethrower, I do believe it can pull out a win there. And then Stoutland as well, it resists those licks, so not as big of a deal there. I waited too long to switch there to farm down with Tentacruel, and so as a result I take a crunch here, but not a big deal. My opponent has shields down, Really hoping he doesn't get to that wild charge there. Thankfully he does not. I suspect he was only 1 or 2 licks away. But I'm able to farm it down there, and now I have massive energy for whatever comes in. A little bit of lag here as I'm trying to throw the Hydro Pump, and it gets a couple extra, I believe, Powder Snows in. Not a big deal, though. I'm going to throw this Hydro Pump, which will deal massive damage to the very glassy Frostlass. He should be able to get an Avalanche off here, but that's fine. It'll just give me room to come back in and farm, to maybe throw a Charge Move if I need to. The Avalanche does KO despite it being resisted, but Muck can come in, throw 1 Snarl, farm that down, and then 1 Snarl as well is enough to take out the Skun Tank, so we take game 1 there. Game 2, I'm going to lead Noctowl, hoping for anything but Stoutland in the lead. Anything but Stoutland or Frostlass, and unfortunately we do catch that Frostlass there, and with Glalie and Muck in the back, we don't necessarily have a great answer to it. Interestingly enough, he brings out his Slowpoke. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I probably would have stayed in with Frostlass there and tried to throw Shadow Balls. The Shadow Balls from Glalie will be doing super effective damage on the Slowpoke. And despite it only being 1226 CP, it does actually deal a lot of damage as a Confusion user, which does neutral on this Ice-type Glalie. The Shadow Ball would definitely OHKO it, though, so he does have to expend both shields here. Really hoping to get to another Shadow Ball, and unfortunately I overtap there and throw an extra Ice Hard, which results in him getting a Charge Move off. Just a Psyshock, but it would be enough to take me out, so I go ahead and shield there so I can get this last Shadow Ball off. At the moment, it would be a little dangerous if he decides to bring Frostlass back in. He could probably farm me down before I was able to get to a Charge Move, which would not fare well for my Noctowl in the back. He does bring in Stoutland, though, able to lick down. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in that Noctowl just because I would rather it be against the Stoutland than against the Frostlass. I can tank this Wild Charge, and I expect him to immediately swap into Frostlass after this because of that debuff, which he does. So I instantly swap into Muck to catch the Avalanche. Still not a great scenario for Muck here. It's going to get outpaced the charge moves, and these Snarls are not going to add up in time, so this Frostlass is able to get to two Avalanches before I can get off a single Dark Pulse. And then in the back, this Noctowl is not going to be a fan of getting hit by an Avalanche. I'm hoping that this Sky Attack will be enough to KO, but it is far from it. And the Frostlass will easily be able to farm me down or throw an Avalanche, whatever it chooses. But he does decide to go ahead and throw that Avalanche there just to be safe. So what played on his part, Frostlass was a pretty devastating pick for me that round, and so I'm going to go and make sure I work around it in the last round. Game 3, I lead Alolan Muck into Slowpoke, which is a very strong lead for me, resisting all of the psychic moves it has. I wasn't sure at this point, because I obviously don't have much experience with Slowpoke, if it knew a Water-type move. But since she shielded that first move, I figured I was safe to go ahead and do the same. And Slowpoke does indeed throw the Water Pulse here. Probably wouldn't do a ton of damage because it is a Slowpoke after all, but I just wanted to be on the safe side. He swaps in a Frostlass here. Avalanche would do a lot of damage, but these Dark Pulses are super effective. There, I probably could have stayed in with Alolan Muck, but I just wanted to make sure that my Tentacruel did not get matched up against that Slowpoke in the back. It would not. It would take super effective damage from that Confusion, which would very much hurt it. So I'm going to go ahead and Hydro Pump Frostlass here after taking a Shadow Ball, which should be enough to take it out. And it is. And then he's probably going to come back in with Slowpoke. Yep, I hope to get an Acid Spray off, but I am nowhere near. Those Confusions add up very, very quickly. But that's fine. We can just come back in with Alolan Muck, and I could probably hope to farm down here, but I would have to take a Water Pulse. I don't really want to do that, so I'm probably going to go ahead and throw this Dark Pulse, but he does switch out before into Hypno. So he actually brought 3 Pokemon there that were weak to Alolan Muck, so I'm able to just completely plow through this line here. I don't even really need to use my Glalie, I just wanted to come in and soak up any energy from this Hypno, so that my Alolan Muck will be able to farm down in the back. But I can probably get to this Avalanche before Hypno is able to throw a Charge Move, which I am. And then the Slowpoke in the back is not going to have much to say about Alolan Muck if it can even get through the Glalie. As you'll see here, building up to the Avalanche. And I think that might have been a CMP tie there, but regardless, we hit the Avalanche and that will easily finish off this Slowpoke. to go ahead and take Game 3 in Round 1. Going into Round 2 versus Eamon CZ. As you can see there, his team is Hypno, Tentacruel, Noctowl, Wigglytuff, Toxicroak, and Frostlass. The first thing I notice is that Bronzong has very safe matchups against almost all of his team. It has to watch out for the Shadow Ball from Hypno if it's carrying it, and it has to watch out for the Shadow Ball from Frostlass as well. But other than that, it's very safe, so I decided to go ahead and lead it. Unfortunately, great predict by him, and he leads Hypno into it. Not a very good matchup for Bronzong if Hypno is carrying that Shadow Ball. However, Bronzong does double resist the confusions with the Steel and Psychic type, while Hypno will only single resist them. So if you ever come to a Hypno without Shadow Ball, which I think is going to be very rare in this cup, you'll definitely have the advantage. However, he does have Shadow Balls here. Not good for me whatsoever, so I'm just going to do as much damage with Bronzong as I can. If I were to go deep in shields in this matchup, it would probably play out differently, but because that Shadow Ball went unshielded, not a very good matchup for me. He's going to throw the Thunder Punch to finish me off, and I'm most likely going to bring in a Alolan Muck. I can take one Thunder Punch here and actually farm it the whole way down and come out with pretty near 100 energy, which is going to be very good for me. However, I shield here. I probably didn't need to. Thunder Punch only does maybe 20% to Alolan Muck. But I just wanted to have as much health as I could coming into whatever's next. Unfortunately, it's Toxicroak, which is probably the best answer to Alolan Muck on his team. Wigglytuff with shields up also is a pretty good answer as well. Thankfully, I do have Toxicroak, I do have Noctowl there to come in and hard counter that Toxicroak, and he has Tentacruel in the back. So I have to play this very cautiously in order to pull out the win. Right here, I probably should have farmed the whole way down, expecting him to only throw Acid Sprays, which is not a big deal. However, his Poison Jabs add up a lot quicker than the Wing Attacks do from Noctowl. And fearing getting hit by another Acid Spray and not being able to throw another Sky Attack on Toxicroak, I am going to go and throw there. However, his Toxicroak can come in, easily just farm me down, and we will die, or I will die, most likely with a shield left. Well, no, I shield here, but at this point it doesn't matter. The Dark Pulse is going to get shielded, and even if it were to go unshielded, it wouldn't do nearly enough damage to take out this Toxicroak, which resists it because of the fighting type. So he's going to go ahead and get to the second Mud Bomb almost right away. No chance for Alolan Muck when it comes in against a Toxicroak with that super effective Mud Bomb and then neutral counter, while Toxicroak resists all the moves. Game 2, going to come in with Noctowl into Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is a pretty safe lead if you want to go deep in shields. If you want to two-shield your Charmer, you can almost always win lead, except examples against maybe a Bronzong or another Steel type, but other than that, you can almost always win lead. So he doesn't shield the first one here, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this second Sky Attack, which will almost surely get a shield if he does want to win lead. So I'm fine with this. I will go ahead and take shield advantage, and I'm hoping that he throws an Ice Beam. Unfortunately, he goes ahead and charms the whole way down, which is the right play. So I'm going to go into Bronzong and soak up all this energy. Both the Ice Beam and the Play Rough from Wigglytuff will be resisted, so there's no point in shielding here. Play Rough does maybe 20-25% to Bronzong, which is not very much at all. Fearing him to bring in a hard counter, I go ahead and switch out to Alolan Muck, and he has Frostlass there. Not a great situation. Again, we get our Alolan Muck trapped against the Toxicroak. That's fine. I have a plan here in my head. I still have 2 shields. So if I go ahead and let this Alolan Muck go down, I can Confusion down the Frostlass with both my shields up after getting rid of this Toxicroak with Confusion. So hopefully I can take out this Toxicroak before it gets to another Mud Bomb, and I barely do. I believe maybe one more counter would have been there. And so although I'm down on health, the Powder Snows from Frostlass will be resisted. Nice shiny flex, by the way. And the Confusions from Bronzong will be doing neutral stab damage. So very good for me there. So as you see here, I can hit the slash Psyshock, and that should be enough to take it out, and it is. Almost. One more Confusion goes through, but he finishes the Powder Snow animation before I do and is able to get to the last charge move. no matter, we still have a shield left, and we will be able to take out that Frostlass. Going into the crucial game 3 here, perfect lead for us. Muck into Hypno, this is exactly what you want to see. This is why Alolan Muck is so strong. It is a complete wall to Hypno, and although it'll take neutral from those Thunder Punches, it doesn't matter because it'll simply outpace it. Toxicroak versus Bronzong here. Toxicroak obviously double weak to that confusion, not a big fan of it at all. However, I don't want this Hypno to get too much energy off my Bronzong, so I'm going to let that Mud Bomb go through. Against Hypno, I should have thrown right away. Unfortunately, I overtap on the confusion there, and it gets the last charge move through, and all that energy goes to waste. But that's fine. We still have Alolan Muck there, so I'm not worried at all about letting that go through. So Alolan Muck's going to throw a Dark Pulse, which will most likely get a shield. It would do about 75% damage to the Hypno, not something it wants to take. Unfortunately, again, overtap, and we go one Snarl too many and have to take a charge move. But that's fine. We'll go ahead and shield here. Anything that he has in the back, Wigglytuff, Frostlass, Noctowl, or Tentacruel, I can all handle with Alolan Muck. I would have to be wary of that Wigglytuff. If it does come in and shield, it could probably take me out. Thankfully, Frostlass in the back. Oh, this is not the guy with the shiny Frostlass. I messed it up earlier. I do believe I do face an opponent with a shiny Frostlass, though. So I'm going to go ahead and swap in my Noctowl here just to tank all of its energy and hopefully come out in a better scenario. He throws a Shadow Ball there, definitely the wrong decision. And after he does that, he's just going to go ahead and quit right out. So that's round 2 there, and we do take the win. I think I would have been okay anyway. I had a almost full health with a lot of energy, Alolan Muck in the back. So round 3, we face the person who actually won the tournament, Qulescent. Very well played to him. He was actually the lowest ranked player in the lobby, but he went 5-0, all upsets, and won the tournament here. Rocking a team of Wigglytuff, Azumarill, Alolan Muck, Hypno, Toxicroak, and Lanoon. I'm already somewhat worried of this team here. Azumarill beats all of my Pokemon here except for the Tentacruel. Wigglytuff, again, can do pretty well against everything except for Bronzong and Tentacruel. His Alolan Muck, obviously very strong Pokemon. Hypno does well against my team as well. I have answers to Toxicroak, although the central focus of my team here, the Alolan Muck, does lose to it. And then I'm not super worried about his Lanoon. I do have counters to it. So I'm going to go ahead and lead Tentacruel, expecting him to lead Wigglytuff or Azumarill, noting their weaknesses to my team. However, that does not go very well for me, as he does lead Hypno. I don't want to swap into the hard counter of Alolan Muck and risk a Toxicroak coming out, so I'm going to go ahead and switch in a Noctowl here. Probably would still lose to Hypno, but I know he's going to want to preserve that matchup against Tentacruel in the back. So he does bring in his Charmer. Smart move. He can win back switch advantage if he puts up a shield, and he keeps it away from that Tentacruel there. So very well played on his part. Unfortunate lead for me. So he, I believe, throws here. Yeah, he's afraid of me getting that next Sky Attack. And I maybe could have shielded here and forced his second shield, but I wasn't confident in my ability to get to the next Sky Attack, so I go ahead and let that go down. I'm going to farm down with Poison Jab there on the Wigglytuff, expecting the Hypno to come back in. I'm hoping I can shield bait or get a Hydro Pump off. Those confusions really add up, though, and he does have Thunder Punch as well. Which will deal super effective on this Tentacruel. So I'm going to go straight for the Hydro Pump. I won't be able to get to a second charge move, so might as well go for the big damage nuke. And he acknowledges that Hypno has pretty much done its job, and he's going to go ahead and let the Hypno take that Hydro Pump to the face. Probably didn't need to shield here, knowing that it's just a Thunder Punch or a Shadow Ball. I think if I didn't shield here, I probably could have taken this match. So we go into this Alolan Muck mirror match in the back, both with one shield. This is all going to come down to who's able to bait and who can land the Sludge Wave. Unfortunately, he does land the Sludge Wave there, so we throw the Dark Pulse bait, hoping to bring back this match. Thankfully, grab the shield. We got an extra Snarl through there during the charge move, and we got another extra Snarl right there when he threw his charge move. However, we do shoot up the Dark Pulse, unfortunate. And at this point, I didn't realize that Sludge Wave was not resisted. So I did go for that Dark Pulse. Thankfully, able to land the Sludge Wave here. You'll see it's very, very scary right up until the end. I was hoping this would KO, but it actually has 1 HP left. And I think he gets greedy and tries to go for the Sludge Wave instead of the Dark Pulse perhaps there. And I'm able to farm it down, and then Hypno comes in and does 2 more snarls. We'll be able to take it out. Game 2, very favorable lead for me. Knocked out into Toxicroak, so he's going to instant swap into Wiggly. Not a very good scenario for me here with the Toxicroak, and I realize that as I'm debating on what to switch out to. This Wigglytuff will be able to farm Glalie the entire way down using only 1 shield, and then although Noctowl does good against Toxicroak, it still has to watch out for those counters and the Sludge Bomb, and my Alolan Muck in the back is not going to be a fan of it at all. Unfortunate CMP tie there to the Wigglytuff, where we're forced to throw Sky Attack. But I'm going to purposely undercharge it so that I have room to farm down, because I really need this Toxicroak gone so that my Alolan Muck can take care of whatever in the back. So I noticed that 2 counters, or the Toxicroak and the Wigglytuff are 2 counters to Alolan Muck, and I'm hoping he doesn't have a 3rd counter to it. Unfortunately, it's the Azumarill in the back. Pretty difficult to do anything with that team comp. I think, if anything, I regret bringing Glalie. It doesn't have a lot of positive matchups on his team. So to do that over again, I maybe could have brought Tentacruel, which could have taken care of that Azumarill better than Noctowl or Alolan Muck. So that's fine. Round 3. Well, obviously we're just going to wait for this Azumarill to finish us off with 1 more Ice Beam. I probably at this point could have just not thrown and let him take it, but I was going to be stubborn until the end. But this is clearly a winning matchup for the Azumarill. There's no way I can get to 2 Sky Attacks, and as it happens, he actually beats me to an Ice Beam before I can even get to 1, which is going to go ahead and finish me off. Game 3, I'm going to go ahead and lead Tentacruel again, because it worked for me in Game 1, even against that Hypno lead. And instead of Noctowl as an answer to Toxicroak, I'm going to bring in the Bronzong. Unfortunate lead here versus a Alolan Muck. Of all the things on his team that I would prefer to see, I was hoping to catch a Wigglytuff or Azumarill lead. Probably not a Muck, because it does deal neutral with the Snarl and the Dark Pulses, which will do about 45%, 50% to Tentacruel. Gonna go for the Acid Spray bait here, hope to grab a shield. Thankfully we do, but not much I can really do at this point. I'm going to match shields and hope to land a Hydro Pump against it. Unfortunately, I make a crucial error here, and I try to overfarm, and I end up in a CMP tie, an unfavorable CMP tie against this Alolan Muck. If I had thrown 1 Poison Jab left, 1 Poison Jab less, it might have affected the outcome of the match. He does let this go down, though, and in the back he has Wigglytuff, so kind of surprising that he let that go down, considering that Wiggly in the back is weak to it, but it's able to farm it down before it does too much damage. And as you'll see here, I have Bronzong against Wiggly, which is pretty good, and he has Azumarill in the back with a shield, which is just going to eat through this Muck and the Bronzong. With that Tentacruel out of the way, matched up against the Alolan Muck, very easy for him to go ahead and finish off both of my remaining Pokemon. He'll be free to shield this Sludge Wave here on the Azumarill. I most likely won't be able to get to another one. Perhaps if I had baited with Dark Pulse there, as you'll see, my win condition there was to not bait with Dark Pulse, or was to bait with Dark Pulse and then not over tap there at the end, and I would have been able to get to that Sludge Wave. But at the time, I was just hoping that he wasn't going to shield. If I had played it differently, as I just said, I probably could have thrown 1 more Psyshock at the Azumarill. It wouldn't have got to the Hydro Pump, and then I think I could have, I definitely could have easily finished off that Wigglytuff with Confusions or with a Psyshock. So unfortunate play on my part, and that's going to cost me the round there. Going into round 4, I'm going to play FDSJOAO. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'm going to start Noctowl here. His team is Bronzong, Alolan Sandslash, Vileplume, Lanoon, Munchlax, and Medicham. Very spicy team here. The first thing I immediately notice is that Lanoon, Alolan Sandslash, Vileplume, and Munchlax I can all handle for the most part with Medicham. So although I don't really bring it in any of the other matchups, I didn't find much use for it. This is one in particular where you see he has 2 normal types there. So that opens it up for a fighter. As well against that Vileplume with the poison and grass typing. I have Ice Punch and Psychic on my Medicham, which can deal super effective to that Vileplume. And then Bronzong goes basically even with Medicham, although it does win out the matchup, I believe. So in the lead here, we're going to see Noctowl against Lanoon. This is favorable for Lanoon, but I believe as the shield scenarios get higher, the better Noctowl does. Lanoon has that Thunder, but the Shadow Claws as the fast move will be double resisted by Noctowl. So he's going to go ahead and shield there. I'm fully expecting this to be a Thunder, but I have to shield it regardless of what Pokemon it is, because that is a big damage move. Medicham Mirror here. I believe the recommended moveset for this tournament is Power Up Punch and Psychic, but I'm running Ice Punch Psychic because I'm running it in my GBL line at the moment, my Go Battle League line, and I didn't want to TM it just for one tournament. Thankfully, the Psychic goes unshielded here, and we do not shield the Power Up Punch bait. So very good scenario for us here. I do beat him to the Ice Punch on whatever his next move is. I fully expect it to be a Psychic, so I'm going to go ahead and shield as well, because I know I can farm down his Medicham here. And as predicted, it is the Psychic, and thankfully I get that shield. I get that shielded perfectly, and I'm able to fully farm down this Medicham and have energy in the back. A little stutter lag there, almost allowed him to get to an extra charge move, but you do finish him off. Coming in the back is Munchlax, and although it might seem like a very, very one-sided matchup for Medicham, Munchlax does have that Lick, which does super effective damage to Medicham, just the same as Medicham's counters will do super effective against the Munchlax. With shields down here, I want to go into Noctowl because Munchlax does have that Bulldoze, which would do super effective on Alolan Muck if it were able to get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and soak up as much energy as I can on Noctowl and go ahead and take out the Munchlax. I want to save up 2 Sky attacks because I want something to hit the Lanoon with. He already exposed his first charge move as Thunder, but I'm scared that it could have Dig as the second one in the back, which would be a very unconventional moveset. But because he does have an off-meta team, I'm not sure what to expect. So I want to make sure I can get to 2 Sky attacks against it so that it can't throw a Dig on my Alolan Muck. So as you see here, these Shadow Claws are doing almost no damage whatsoever, so I do force him to throw. He maybe could have gone for Grass Knot there, but that still might not have KO'd, and Alolan Muck in the back is easily going to be able to go ahead and take this. Since I led Noctowl game 1 to great success, I expect the lead to be either Bronzong or Alolan Sandslash, or Lanoon as well, all counters to Noctowl. So I'm going to go ahead and lead Muck because it has positive matchups against all of those, and I do catch the Bronzong in the lead, which is almost perfect for me. Alolan Muck does resist the Confusions while throwing super effective on the Dark Pulse and outpacing it to the Bulldoze, which although it would do super effective is not a very great move, and probably still would not be able to OHKO. Surprisingly, he's going to go Shields in this matchup, which is very negative for him. In his scenario, it's better to swap out, and because he doesn't, I'm assuming he has something that loses very hard to it in the back, such as Medicham or Munchlax. So I will match Shields with him, but I think I can beat him to the 3rd Dark Pulse. He does switch out in the Medicham though, and I tried to switch there, but the switch didn't work for some reason. And because I know that this Medicham doesn't have Ice Punch, I have no problem switching Noctowl in. He throws Psychic first, hoping to get off that damage. I think it would have been smarter to go Power Up Punch before he throws a Psychic, but regardless, Noctowl will be able to take this matchup pretty easily. A bit of lag there, letting us only hit the Great. I think if I'd hit the Excellent, I probably wouldn't have taken another charge move due to lag, but whatever. It's only a Power Up Punch, and it does like 2 damage to Noctowl. Not a big deal at all. So I expect the Bronzong to come back in because it will resist the flying type moves from Noctowl. I'm able to get to one more Sky attack, but that'll be pretty inconsequential against Bronzong, as tanky as it is. It does maybe 10-15% against it. So I immediately bring in Alolan Muck and instantly hit that Dark Pulse against it, which will absolutely KO it. And we'll see what's in the back here. It is the Lanoon. Very good matchup for Medicham. I could probably pretty close to counter it the whole way down with just a shield. So I'll go ahead and shield this up. I know it's Grass Knot, well, I guess he hasn't shown a second move yet, so it could have been Dig. But it was too soon to be a Dig or a Thunder, so I know that it's Grass Knot. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the Psychic, which will either KO or bring it very, very close, and it does indeed KO. And then in round 4, I'm hoping he brings a counter to Alolan Muck, which on his team there isn't really much, but I'm expecting a Munchlax lead. However, I do catch Bronzong lead again, which is negative for Medicham, especially without that Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch would hit neutral on Bronzong, while it resists both the Ice Punch and the Psychic. If this was a Power Up Punch variation, it would hit neutral and could maybe take this matchup. It would just depend on how the shield scenarios went. He hasn't thrown any charge moves yet, so he's going to go ahead and farm me almost the whole way down, get a ton of energy off me, and he is going to throw here at the end. He used one shield there, I believe, so I'm fine with letting this Medicham go down and taking that shield advantage. I can shield once on the Alolan Muck, expecting this to be a Bulldoze, and then I should be able to farm the entire way down and come out with a load of energy, which is awesome. And he does throw the Bulldoze there, and so I'm going to go ahead and Snarl the whole way down and be in even shield scenarios, down a little bit of health, but up a ton of energy on whatever else comes in. And it is Medicham, which is going to take neutral from these Dark Pulses, because despite being a Psychic type, it's also fighting, so it has that resistance. He's going to shield the first one, so I have 2 back-to-back ready to go from all the energy I farmed off Bronzong. Dark Pulse is actually slightly more energy efficient than the Sludge Wave, so in most scenarios you're going to want to throw that if they both hit neutral. I'm fine letting his Medicham go down, or I'm fine letting the Alolan Muck go down, but it is only a Power Punch, which barely does anything anyway. I'm not sure that Dark Pulse can KO there, and I don't want the counters to stack up any more than they can, so I'm going to go ahead and throw the Sludge Wave because it'll do a little more damage. And the Shadow Claws are resisted because of Alolan Muck's Dark typing, so I'm not super worried about this Lanoon. It'll have to throw on me, or it's going to eat 2 Dark Pulses. And so you'll see here he gets a little nervous. He maybe could have had it. It would have been very, very close, but he does go ahead and throw that Grass Knot. I'm going to save the shield for Noctowl just in case he's able to get to a Thunder, but I should be able to get to a Sky attack. I expect this to only be a Grass Knot, but regardless, I know I can beat him to the next charge move, so I go ahead and shield it anyway. That would have been a double resisted damage move, and probably only done like 10%. However, with this, we are going to go ahead and take round 4 and head into round 5 against Pokemaster Bud. As you can see here, Pokemaster Bud is running the team of Hypno, Azumarill, Medicham, Haunter, Alolan Muck, and Alolan Ninetales. We catch an almost perfect lead here, Tentacruel versus that Alolan Ninetales, doing super effective with the Poison Jab because it is that Fairy typing. However, I do have to watch out for the Psy Shock that Alolan Ninetales carries that would hit super effective on Tentacruel. He swaps out to Hypno, and before I even take damage from one Confusion, I am able to switch into Alolan Muck. I fully expected that, so I had my switch tray open and ready. Here, Alolan Muck has done its job. It's taken out the Hypno, so I'm going to let it go ahead and take me out if it wants to, and hope to try and Snarl farm down. Here, Shadow Ball or Thunder Punch, I think I can live. He goes straight for the Shadow Ball, and I live with barely any HP left. But I do not have energy left to throw at whatever comes in. I expect him to bring in Ninetales and try to get a Charm off before I'm able to throw the move. However, it doesn't work out for him, and I do throw the Sludge Wave, which OHKOs it. So in the back here, I know Tentacruel won't win against the Alolan Muck, but my goal is to get 2 Acid Sprays and then be able to Confusion down with Bronzong and have both shields ready for it. However, I quickly find out that I will not be able to get to 2 Acid Sprays before it throws the second Dark Pulse. Barely unable to. I debate shielding here, but I know I'm going to need both shields for my Bronzong in the back. So at this point, we do both have 2 shields, but I'm looking at the damage that my Bronzong is doing, and I think I can Confusion it down before it gets off 3 Dark Pulses. 2 will be shielded, and obviously the final one would hit me. And I don't think it would KO regardless, but looking at how much these Snarls are doing, it very well may have. So I'm going to go ahead and shield up this last one here. There's no way he's getting to a 3rd Dark Pulse, and he's actually going to go down with 2 shields remaining. It was very difficult for him. The matchups overall were not very favorable. A Alolan Muck lead scenario here. This one is very bait dependent and a very anxiety inducing one to play just because of how much it can vary depending on the baiting scenarios. So I wanted to let him throw first and try to sneak a Snarl through whenever he threw his charge move, and as you can see there, thankfully it does work, and we don't shield the Dark Pulse. So very good scenario for us there. However, he returns that extra Snarl whenever we throw our move, and he doesn't shield the Sludge Wave, which is very good for us. I expect this to be a Sludge Wave, however he does throw the Dark Pulse again, but that's fine. I have a Dark Pulse already, and I expect him to match shields with me, so this should be no problem. Get him to shield that one as well, despite me falling for it. Here, I probably should have thrown Sludge Wave, but I was scared of him getting to another move before me. And so I throw this Dark Pulse, and he throws his. I'm not going to shield. I think I can survive it. We look to be at very similar health, and we actually do simultaneously KO there. So with that Alolan Muck out of the way, both of these Pokemon look like pretty good options against the remainder of his team. However, I do throw in the Noctowl just because it feels a little bit safer for me. And he does have Hypno, which is an interesting matchup because Hypno does hit super effective with that Thunder Punch, although it's not stab and it's not a super great move. As I said earlier, I do have this rank 1 Noctowl, so I'm confident in its ability to take out this Hypno if the second Sky attack can go unshielded. However, if he shields this, he could probably Confusion me the whole way down and then throw a Shadow Ball onto Bronzong, which I'm a little afraid of. However, he switches out into Alolan Ninetales there, hoping to build up energy for whatever's in the back. I'm guessing he was hoping for a Medicham, even Tentacruel, just something he could hit with a charge move. However, Bronzong comes in, and that's pretty much going to be GG. I don't need to shield this. I know it's just a Psysock, which is double resisted. So we eat that like a champ, and I have 1 shield left. He has none, so I should be able to easily get to this Bulldoze. I sneak a Confusion there as he's throwing his charge move, which is near perfect for me. He throws the Thunder Punch, which I don't even need to shield. I probably should have shielded there. Would have been smarter, just in case he had that Shadow Ball. But I'm going to go ahead and throw this Bulldoze, which is GG. Unfortunately, he forfeits the 3rd game, so not much going on there. It would have been nice to get to test my team in one more, but he does quit out. So as you see here, Qulescent, I'm not sure how to say it, but he did win the tournament here. So congratulations to him. Again, my team was Noctowl, Medicham, Bronzong, Glalie, Tentacruel, and Alolan Muck. Some additional thoughts on this meta so far. It has a learning curve. It's a lot different than some of the previous metas we've seen. It focused a lot on quick, low health, very glassy Pokemon such as Forest, Ferocious, Rose Cup, things like that. This heavily relies on a lot of bulkier, tankier, low damage Pokemon, which in my opinion is better because it allows you to play out the switch clock, to make sack swaps and high skill plays more so than others. And it definitely does not feel as hard countery and lead dependent as some of the previous cups have. I did find that Medicham and the fighters in general were a bit underwhelming. Toxtrigger has a good role as a heavy anti-Alolan Muck counter. I played around with Medicham on PvPoke and it looked solid enough, but in practice it seemed to get walled by a lot, such as Charmers, Azumarill, Alolan Muck, Hypno, Bronzong, Lanoon. I mean, if you look at my opponent's team, right here. Basically everything on that except for Toxicroak can easily beat Medicham, and Toxicroak can even win in some scenarios. So I don't think that I will be running Medicham on my finalized team, but this was a fun tournament to go ahead and try out. Thank you to Professor Birch, I believe he goes by Birchinator on Discord, in the Pogo Coliseum Discord for hosting. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.